Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Ward. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this Wednesday evening. Now, I saw some wild takes, and I say this all the time. Sometimes it gets a little annoying when the Braves just keep not like I love it, right? But when the Braves are just on such a dominant stretch, because Braves Twitter is almost too close like this. They're almost they agreed too much. We need a 3-game losing streak every once in a while, so pandemonium can hit, and the real dummies can show themselves. Because I've seen some of the wildest takes, and a lot of them were about the Braves bullpen. We mentioned Bryce Elder should be traded and stuff like that, but the Braves bullpen was probably the worst. This is the worst unit of all time. Let's just ignore the fact that this group is the furthest thing from healthy. It's probably the most deteriorated unit. They're missing 4 of their top arms. Elder only went 2 2/3 of an inning. They're facing a good offense. We have guys like Tonkin, Ben Heller, who might not even be on the roster in a couple weeks, going out there and throwing innings. It's just funny to watch people freak out over basically one bad game. But let's talk about this panic meter, because you are without 4 of your top guys. One of them's on the 60-day IL, and Nick Anderson. Dylan Lee has been on the 60-day IL, missed over 2 months. Jesse Chavez has now missed over a month. AJ Minter, I think his is more of a precautionary thing, and I think he'll be fine. But he's still one of the Braves' top relievers, and if there's anything wrong with him, you got a problem. So what is the panic meter with this group as we approach the trade deadline?
I think it's pretty low. Yeah, 5. I think you could definitely use some help. I think just about any contender could always use an extra piece or two. But I'm definitely not. I'm not freaking out at this moment as I sit here. It's something that I don't know. People get so upset because I never really seem to get that upset when we lose, because I don't really care about games this early in the year. I like them; they're entertaining, and I like to watch the team. But it's not the end of the world if you lose a game this early in the season. And all that really matters is how you're playing in late September, October. But I think everybody needs like something they can shake their finger at and be like, "You cost us the game. Like, this is your fault." Sometimes it's just not the case, and I think tonight's one of those nights. The offense was really good, but there were a couple guys you can point the finger at, and it is what it is at this point. Like, it's not an every night thing. It's not like 2019 or years before that when it was just clearly the bullpen going out there and blowing it every single time.
Yeah, I mean, Braves fans, especially like irrational ones, they like to treat every game like it's Game 7 of the World Series, and it's a must win. And the reality is, you have a 10-game lead in the division. You're not even coaching it anywhere close to how you would coach an actual playoff game or anything like that. So it's just irrational. They can't look past the big picture. I actually said something last night that in the long run, having these guys out, if they all aren't injured, could be good, because listen, we had a long jam of guys that were all kind of like middle relievers, low-end relievers, the Ben Hellers, the Michael Tonkins. We also had a couple middle relievers in Joe Jimenez and Kirby Yates, who we thought they have good numbers on the surface. Can they pitch in these high leverage situations? I think this is good opportunities for them. If this was July and we were talking about this and we were 3 games up or 3 games back, I would have a lot more concern. But right now, I'm like, we're 10 games up. No one is catching to us because our offense can lead us to enough wins to win this division. I like to see these guys weed themselves out. Can Joe Jimenez and Kirby Yates be high leverage relievers come October? Can Ben Heller be an actual guy that can make the playoff roster? Michael Tonkin, guys like that. I like to see this. I think this is an invaluable experience for those guys. So we're going to weed some of these guys out because the other guys are going to come back. We're going to see guys DFA'd that don't belong on the roster. We're going to see if Joe Jimenez and Kirby Yates can handle high leverage situations. And then at the end of the day, this is all happening before the trade deadline, where we can be like, okay, these guys weren't good for these 2 weeks. We need to replace them. We need to find something better. And that's why my panic leader is at 2, because 1, a lot of these guys are going to come back. 2, we still have the trade deadline. And I think the Braves' top priority, as I've said time and time again, will be bullpen help. And when all those things come together, we've already had a pretty good bullpen when healthy. You add an arm or 2. There's really no reason to panic, simply because you're 10 games up and you have the trade deadline.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned Nick Anderson being out. I think is a pretty big deal as well. That's just the nature of a bullpen, though, man. They're volatile. That's kind of why they're in the bullpen. But I think that they have an opportunity to go get somebody. They'll probably add 1, maybe 2 guys. I don't know. I didn't think they would for a short time. before a lot of these injuries kicked up, I thought, they got some capable guys. They'll probably just ride it out. Trading for somebody is going to be weird. You talk about Jesse Chavez maybe coming back. I don't know. His injury might be a little more serious than we've been led to believe. But I don't know. I don't have any names off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's a few out there. That's not really my job. I have full faith in the front office to get that done. But yeah, I just don't think there's any reason to panic because you had the bullpen blow a game. And do you remember that stretch in July in 2021? That's probably the most frustrated I've ever been with this team.
Yeah, we were blowing games left and right. We were blowing games left and right.
It was Will Smith, AJ Minter. Those were the two main culprits, just absolutely just losing games we had no business losing.
And then they came together in October and had the best postseason run from a bullpen that we've ever seen in Braves history and helped us win a World Series. So it's volatile. That's just how things are. You got to hope these guys show up in October. The only thing you can do right now is make it as little volatile as possible by adding as many options as possible. And that's why I think the Braves go out there and get a reliever. You mentioned guys named. I mean, we've talked about this, but I have a few off the top of my head. Scott Barlow, love him from the Royals. Would love to add him. Josh Hader, if the Padres sell. I know the rental reliever thing isn't really Alex Anthopoulos' MO, but this is a World Series of us team. And I just think if you added a legit closer like Josh Hader and put Rafael Iglesias in the 8th and let AJ Minter pitch the 7th, that is dangerous. Like, that is unbelievably dangerous. Josh Hader's been the best closer in baseball this season. He looks like the best closer in baseball again. So those are some names. But knowing the Braves, they'll probably go out there and grab two guys you've never heard of that have terrible stats this year, but great peripherals, and they'll come in and they'll be great. Like, that's probably what's really going to happen. But they're definitely going to, I mean, there's always relievers available. Even in a seller's market, there's always relievers available. I mean, Jordan Hicks of the Cardinals, that's an interesting name.
We talked about Kenley Jansen potentially coming back too. I don't think that's too crazy to think about.
Yeah, the only thing is the Red Sox all of a sudden remembered how to play baseball. I don't know how. Like, their roster.
I think everybody in the AL East is over 500.
No, yeah, they're all 5 games over 500. The Yankees are the worst team in the AL East. Like, I don't know if you watched a Yankees game. They can't play. They can't hit. Like, without Aaron Judge, it's like, where's my daddy? Where's my daddy? They all look like little children. They're like, we can't play without daddy. It's unbelievable. I've never seen, like, their offense for like 2 months is hitting like 200. With an on-base percentage below 300. It's quite literally one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen from a team. I feel bad for Yankees fans. I don't feel bad for Yankees fans because they suck, but like, how their expectations are, and like they are falling so far short. I mean, the Red Sox, who are rebuilding, are ahead of them in the standings.
It's got to be crazy frustrating to be – I know we're getting off the rails here, but it has to be so crazy frustrating to be like 4 games over 500 and in last place in the division. You know how mad I would be? Like, the Nationals are last in the NL East, and they're like 20 and 40. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous.
And not only are you in last place, you're like 12 games behind first place. Like, it's –
yeah,
it's rough.
And then you're like kind of in the wild card, kind of not. That's just a terrible place to be.
And this just kind of speaks to everything that I want to say to Braves fans right now. You know, we talked about all these lunatics on Twitter complaining and acting like the world's ending over a 3-game losing streak, and that the bullpen's the worst thing ever, and the pitching staff as a whole is the worst thing ever, despite leading the league in ERA. I don't know if they do now because they gave up 16 runs last night, but this entire pitching staff has been the best in baseball according to ERA. I just wish for 1 second, like, it's clear that they don't watch anything other than Braves games, because I wish for 1 second they watched 100 Mets games or 100 Phillies games or 100 any other team in baseball that isn't the Braves, and they would be like, oh, not everybody's perfect. These guys struggle too. It's like, no, duh. It's baseball, guys. It's baseball. Just because the Braves have been damn near perfect for a couple months doesn't mean that eventually they're going to hit a little lull in the road. And it's better to happen now, like you said, in July than in October.
I think it's a lot of college football fandom, and a lot of them too, where they just expect perfection at all times because it's like, oh, we can't mess up, we can't slip up or anything like that. Like, it's just not that big of a deal, man. This is a 162 game season. Like, this is a long haul. I haven't seen a team go 162-0.
You will never see me panic. I mean, and we're both on. You will never see me panic in July. Not when you're 10 games up in the division, man. That's just lunacy, guys. That's absolute lunacy. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about Kevin Pillar. He had a big game last night. Fair or foul? Should he get more starts in left field?